Reggie. Okay. We are continuing in chapter 52. Our quest here is to appreciate, to understand how God is everywhere, and yet there is a specific place where the Shekhinah is, the divine presence is. And that divine presence is something that we have a connection to, a relationship with, as opposed to merely God as creator. What is the distinction between them? Well, if we understand the way our soul interplays within our body, then we can understand and appreciate the way God interplays within creation. In the soul, as we've explained, there's the essence of the soul that is in a toenail and in the brain equally, no distinction. There is the functionality of the soul, the way a mere glimmer, a mere ray of the soul, a mere small, minute form of vitality of the soul and life from the soul that vests itself in the finger to act as a finger, to have the functionality of a finger, the foot to be a foot, the eye to be an eye, and the ear to be an ear, and so on. And then there is the first place where the soul is revealed, and that is in the brain. It is the main abode of the soul in the brain, and therefore the uniqueness of the brain over the rest of the body. It is the place that funnels the vitality to the rest of the body, the mere glimmer that comes from there. So, likewise is God in creation. We've spoken at length about the essence of God is equally everywhere. There's no distinction. The essence of God is found everywhere in creation. And creation we don't just mean in the physical world, we mean also in the spiritual realm. But then there is the ray of light that is contracted, that makes a stone a stone. Why is it a stone? Why is it inanimate? Is because the light is so contracted. Not as contracted to make vegetation, even less contracted for an animal and human souls, and so on and so forth. But what our focus is here is about, just as in the brain is the mainstay of the soul, its revealed part is in the brain. So likewise, where is the revealed, the revelation, the manifestation, the mainstay of that, of God? And that's what we're discussing over here. So we explained in yesterday's class that that's called Shekhinah, divine presence. We have other names for it from the Kabbalists, called the revealed world. It's called, we'll explain a little more what it means, revealed world. It's called queen. It's also called mother. And in mother, nether mother, meaning the lower form of mother, as opposed to a higher form of mother. And this all refers to Malchus of Atzilus, if you want the Hasidic geography. Malchus of Atzilus, the 10th and final of the 10 divine attributes. Malchus, translated as sovereignty, royalty, kingship. And this is all the what we call Shekhinah, divine presence. What does it mean, divine presence? Just like the soul is much more powerfully found in the brain than it is in the toenail, in its revealed state. So likewise, even though God is everywhere equally, the essence of God, but there is a manifestation of God, a revelation of God. That's not the essence, but taking from the essence of the Ein Sof and revealing it. That's called Shekhinah, or the other terms that we used. So the Shekhinah itself is, of course, revealing the Ein Sof, the limitlessness of God, right? So in Atzilus, which is a world of emanation, it's not a world of creation, where we have there, when we say God is like to say God has a first name and a last name. His first name is God. His last name is godliness. God, the essence of God, Ein Sof, or call it Ein Sof, right, is beyond any kind of understanding. How do we understand that, the Ein Sof is equally everywhere, no distinction, whether it's an animate object or a human being, or the spiritual worlds, all equally there. That's God, that's Ein Sof. Godliness is already about a manner that God has definition, has some parameters, and those are the 10 divine attributes. In the 10 divine attributes, we have 3 intellectual, called Chabad, 6 emotions, and then finally Malchus, which is the lowest. Malchus, again, royalty, kingship. So, let's understand how this works. There's going to be a little bit of Hasidic geography over here, so hold on for the ride. Taking from the human dimension, we have intelligence, but the only way that you know that a person has intelligence is by the fact that they communicate. Through their communication, through their speech, that reveals the intelligence of the individual. So the intelligence of the divine, right, the Chabad, is revealed through Malchus, royalty, which is speech. Why is royalty speech? A concept that we've learned in the past, because the king rules through his, or the queen, through her word. They rule with their word. God's Malchus is how he creates with his word. God said, let there be light, and there was light. That's how he rules, that's how he creates. So Malchus is what manifests the divine intelligence being God's divine wisdom, which is Torah, ultimately. So, when we have that's the way it is in Atzilus, we have the divine intelligence, the Torah there. It is manifest through Malchus of Atzilus. It's expressing it. And therefore Malchus, therefore, in that expression, in that manifestation of the divine intelligence, becomes now what we call Shekhinah. Because Shekhinah is the revealed world. It's revealing that which is hidden. What's hidden? Intelligence is hidden. Until a person speaks, you don't know anything about their intelligence. You don't know anything about them through communication. Those are the two things that make us different than the animal kingdom. Our intelligence and our capability of communication. We've discussed that at great length in the past. We'll just leave it at that for now. So, this wisdom has a progressive descent into the created world. It is enclosed in the Shekhinah. Again, Shekhinah is Malchus of Atzilus, right? And from there, it goes into the world of Beriah. And where does it reside? It resides in the Holy of Holies. What's the Holy of Holies in the world of Beriah? The world of Beriah is a world of creation. We'll elaborate upon that now. It is enclosed there in the Holy of Holies. In other words, the divine intelligence that is a vehicle for the Ein Sof, for the limitlessness of God, is enclosed in Malchus of Atzilus. They descend. There's a descent, a progressive descent of the Shekhinah that now it's manifesting, right? The manifesting God. Where does it reside when it goes in a descent downwards, in a spiritual evolution? We do believe in evolution as Jews, but a spiritual evolution from spiritual to physical. That's the kind of evolution we believe in. So it descends there into the Holy of Holies. What's the Holy of Holies? Is the intelligence of that particular world, the divine intelligence in the world of Beriah. And we'll explain what that means in a moment. And then in the Holy of Holies, that divine intelligence is the Torah of that world. It further then vests itself into the Shekhinah, the divine presence of that world. And remember, presence means revelation, manifestation. So that manifestation means the power of speech that Malchus has in that particular world. Now, what does the speech of Malchus do in that world? Well, it creates. It creates things in the world of Beriah. This is a spiritual world, not a physical world. We're going to have this evolutionary process until we get to this world. But in the world of Beriah, it speaks. It manifests. It creates. What does it create? Souls. Angels. Now, these are lofty souls and lofty angels because this is the world of Beriah. Right? Now, in that act of creation, what does it mean that it creates? What does creation mean? Creation means that there's a separate identity. The power that's creating it, right? Malchus of Beriah, the Shekhinah, the divine presence of Beriah that's creating the angels, the souls, the world, the chambers that are there, that they kind of have an abode, a place to live, just like we live down here in abodes. So there's spiritual abodes up there too. All of that has a sense of selfhood, of its own identity, as opposed to the power that's creating it. What's the power that's creating it? The Shekhinah, Malchus, the Word of God, in the world of Beriah. Why is it not separate if it's in the world of Beriah? Because it's the power of the divine that vested in it ultimately is the Holy of Holies in that world, which in it is vested in Malchus of Atzilus. And Malchus of Atzilus has vested in it ultimately the Ein Sof, the limitlessness of God. So it has the power of God to be able now to create something from nothing, in spiritual terms of souls, angels, chambers, abodes, in this particular world. Okay? Now, in the Holy of Holies of that world, which is the divine intelligence of that world, that we said is Torah, well, it's a particular element of the Torah. And what is that? It's what we call Talmud, or specifically Gemara, for those who are familiar with what that means, which means it is the divine reasoning behind the divine will of God. So, for example, the divine will of God is, to keep the Sabbath holy. That's the divine will. It's ultimately beyond any intelligence because it doesn't come from the world of Beriah, which is a world of divine intelligence. It comes from the will of God that is beyond this particular world. So, in essence, for example, again, one of the 613 commandments to keep the Sabbath holy, or any of the commandments, right? The commandment itself is far and above beyond any kind of rationale or reasoning, because it comes from a place of the world of emanation that is beyond that, and even beyond the world of emanation, the world of Atzilus. So inherently, it's beyond any rationale. Yet, God's divine wisdom, the way it is in Atzilus, that is wisdom that is not a rational wisdom, and we'll explain that, wisdom that's not rational, what does that mean exactly? But it descends, God's expression, his godliness, right, descends into the world of Beriah, which is the world of creation. Beriah means creation, which is a world of divine intelligence that pervades it. And therefore, in that world, there is the divine wisdom of God that will be about rationale, logic. that will give us a rational and logical understanding about Shabbos, the laws of Shabbos, the observance, and so on and so forth. But that's already a descent of the particular divine will of God that's far and above and beyond it. But from that world comes the Talmud's teachings. That's the Holy of Holies of that world. That Holy of Holies is expressed through Shekhinah. Because Shekhinah, again, is Malchus. Malchus is royalty. Royalty is the Word of God as it's expressed in the words of the Gemara. That when Hillel and Shamai have an argument, right? There's a debate between them. The logic in the debate comes from this world of Beriah that is an expression of the Holy of Holies, which is the divine intelligence of the world of Beriah. Therefore, when we study that, we have a connection to the divine, to God himself. Ultimately, it's to God himself, because that divine that comes from that world vested in it, and vestiture means over here, it's sort of, I'll give the example. So when you study, by the way, we're going to study some Talmud this afternoon, 1:45. Anybody wants to join on Zoom or on Chabad ZK Facebook. I don't know if Clubhouse people are ready for this. It's it's a little, it's not so much discussion. It's more the telling of stories of the Talmud particularly. In any case, the point being is that the logic that comes from there, I gave the example of like a debate between Hillel and Shamai. So the reasoning behind it, the fact that, for example, let's just give a quick example, the debate between Hillel and Shamai, people might not be familiar, about how do you light your Hanukkah menorah. So we all lighted the first day 1 candle, second day 2 candles, and 3 candles. Well, that's according to Hillel. According to Shammai, you light the first day 8 and the second day 7, and so on. Right. Now, the adjudication of the law is not what we're talking about here, but the rationale and the logic behind it is how do you look? Well, how do you look at life? How do you look at reality? So there's a debate. According to Hillel, well, let's go with Shammai first. According to Shammai, the reason why you light 8 on the first day is because potentially in this day you have 8. And ultimately, the whole reason why we were created and the purpose of creation is that we all have potentials that should be realized. That should be realized. Well, so you have the potential of 8 days on the first day. So you're lighting 8 to realize the full potential today. Second day, you only have 7. And all the way down to 1. Hillel says, no, you don't look at life or reality that way. You have to look at the way it is in practice, in facts on the field, so to speak. Not what your potential is, because potential might not be realized. So the fact is, today's day 1. So you light 1 candle. So how we adjudicate is not the discussion right now. Actually, we'll discuss that tomorrow. And because that comes actually in a different world, in the next world. But the rationale behind it, the argument, they're both right. They're both right in their divine rationale, logical debate that they have between them. As a matter of fact, this is a debate in every case between them. It comes out, do you look at life in its potential state, or do you look at life in its realistic, practical, so to speak, facts on the field state? Which one's right? Well, they're both right. In the end, we adjudicate the one, and we'll get into that again tomorrow, how that occurs. That's an expression of a different world. But now we're in the world of rationale. because the world of Beriah is divine logic, divine rationale, divine wisdom. So therefore, when we speak about Gemara, we're speaking about the rationale behind the debate itself. And that is what is the expression of the divine wisdom, the divine Torah in that world, in the world of Beriah, therefore is the Gemara. Again, today, for those who are interested, 12:45, we're going to be doing some of that stuff. And that's today's teachings. Very, how should I say, I hope I brought clarity to something that is pretty deep and profound. Now, I just want to repeat something that I mentioned yesterday and again mentioned today. We have a new improved format. And that is the way I want to make sure, since we're on 3 different formats, and each format that we're dealing with, Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse, they have a different kind of culture. So I want to make sure that we are, or that I am at least, doing good for everybody and making sure that I give everybody sort of the space and the opportunity. So the way it will be is what I just did, teachings now. Teachings of the Tanya, and then thereafter, only thereafter, will be questions and answers. Questions. So not so much statements, not discussion yet. Questions, because people need to clarify and to make sure that what the teachings were understood. So first it's about questions that we can answer, not about someone sharing their own thoughts. Okay, that's not the second part. And I will do Facebook first because it's easy for me to forget the Facebook because it's written and it's sometimes hard for me to find and whatever, and no one's talking, so it's harder. And then I will look at Clubhouse for any questions. Again, I want to clarify that because I want to do this right for everybody. So that'll be questions. Thereafter, once we've dealt with questions and the answers, then there can be an open conversation and discussion. There can be more of a sharing of thoughts and ideas thereafter. So again, I want to make sure that there's clarity in this. I'm going to announce this, to make sure that we stay on this path, so that way we can. Everybody can get, the most. I hope that satisfies everybody, and because we try to, but it's always hard. And sometimes you got something that you just have to share and you want to share, and that's okay, but in the appropriate time slot. So now we're going to do questions, and I think the first question that I see is from Daisy, and Davida, let me know if I'm correct on that. So what is there in the world of Atzilus? Daisy lives in Jerusalem, so she's on top of the mountain. She's at, close to Atzilus. So Atzilus is the world of emanation. It's a world where you're not separate from God. You're not separate from God, where there's a sense of only God's reality exists. And that's where Kabbalistic teachings, that's where Hasidus ultimately, and even beyond that, actually, it even comes beyond that, but that's where Kabbalistic teachings will come from. Because in Kabbalistic mystical teachings, right, it's beyond logic. It's beyond rationale. If you ever studied the Zohar or Eitz Chaim or any of these things, which I do not suggest anybody does, because I don't think you're there ready for it. But if you have studied it, you can see that, it's mystical. I don't get the rationale. I don't get the logic over here. And it's true, because it's an expression of the divine, the Holy of Holies in the world of Atzilus. So it's beyond. Hasidus actually is even beyond that. Chabad Hasidus is even beyond that, but and therefore it can be expressed in rationality at the same time, where again the Kabbalistic or mystical teachings in and of itself is not like the Zohar, the Eitz Chaim, and the like. Thank you for asking that, Daisy. Great question. Let me get now a reminder that if you're asking a question, 2 question marks first, so that way I know it's a question rather than something else. So Daisy, now you have another question. The essence of Hashem is beyond worlds. Yes, correct. So what happens in the world of Atzilus? And what is there in the world of Atzilus? So we call it a world, but it's not a world that is separate from God. There's no sense of separate. Nothing there has a sensibility or an awareness of self. Only has an awareness of godliness. That's it, period. The world of Beriah, it's not that way. The souls, the angels that are created have a self-awareness. Now, it's much more ethereal and much more abstract and much more tenuous than us down here, for example. Right? We'll get there more. We'll get there soon. So in the world of Atzilus is a world of emanation. Take it in the human condition. There's the essence of the person. There's the essence of God, which is God, Ein Sof. There is then the other extreme. There's what a person does, what they create, so to speak, their productivity, their functionality. That's what you do. Well, in that doing, there is like an expression in the world of Beriah, Yetzirah and Asiyah. Then there is, in between that, not the essence of who you are, but sort of like your aura. Is the aura you? No, but it's not what you do either. It's sort of like the extension of you. That's the world of emanation. And in the world of emanation is where begins the divine attributes, the 10 divine attributes of God, right? Chachma, Bina, B'das, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, chesed, kvoret, veres, netzach, yesod, malchus, loving kindness, loving kindness, power, tiferes, beauty, compassion, triumph, victory, humility, acknowledgement, foundation, connection, and the 10th and final one, malchus, royalty, sovereignty, kingship, the word of God, Shekhinah. Okay, so in the world of Atzilus, there's nothing there but a sense of the connection to the Ein Sof. In the world of Beriah, the divine attributes have that also, but in the creation of the things there's a sense of separateness. I hope that was clear. By the way, a reminder, I really appreciate when you share. I know now that. That's another thing that I'm going to share before the open discussion is I know now that. That allows everybody or whoever wants to regurgitate the teachings, put it into your own words so you can really own it, and that's really important. Ownership here. Anybody, please? Thank you, Rena. Okay, so I don't see any questions, further questions. Correct me if I'm wrong. Davida Bacha. Reggie, in the world of Atzilus, there is nothing contracted. Is there a dimension of expansion? So in the world of Atzilus, there is a contraction, but the contraction is not in a way that there is a sense of separateness. Of course there's contraction. There has to be contraction because we're talking about from the Ein Sof, the limitless of God, and now there's limitation of godliness. How's there limitation of godliness? Well, because Chokhmah, wisdom, is wisdom. It's not understanding. And it's not an emotion. That means it's got a parameter, it's got a definition. That means it's got a limitation. So there's that limitation of the divine, godliness, right? God's last name, and as a result, giving us, God does that in order to give us access to Him because those divine attributes are one with God. Something that we explained at great length in the past. In the past. So, please, Eugenia, you always share I know now that. Irma, you also share I know now that. And who else? Also Davida and Liba. Often you do also. Please do share. Anybody else that would like to? I think John, you do also, if I'm not mistaken. But put the words I know now that, so that way I can find it immediately. Deborah, thank you. I know now that if everyone could listen to teachings as this, that a greater level of pure love and admiration would be left for our Creator due to this knowledge. I agree with you. So, Deborah, we got to bring more people on board over here. More people on Facebook, more people on Clubhouse, more people on Instagram, because there's no question that if we can, a daily engagement in learning the Alter Rebbe's teachings, it's going to change the world for good. There's no question. Days I know now that the world of Beriah, creations as angels and souls. Yes. Excellent. Okay. Now, for the next part, open for conversation, discussion, any questions, further questions or discussion, if there's anybody takes issue with something or needs a clarification or just, wants to add something. Batya, Vilma, if anything or anybody else, now is our time. Well, everybody's quiet today. What's going on over here? Michelle, Adi, Chaya, Sina, Michael, Mayor, Marcy, Jeff. Marty, I know now. Torah, the divine truth. Yes. Oh la la. Marty used to look very mystical. Trying to figure it out. All right. If that's it, we're going to call it a day. No, we're just going to call it a morning. A day, it's not yet. But again, a reminder today, 12:45, you want to study some of the Talmud that we spoke about, which gives the divine rationale, understanding, and we will have more to share. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming. When Mashiach, okay, Davida, when Mashiach comes, how will everything be filtered down into all the worlds? Well, that's the Mashiach course that you have to come to. That's a very, lengthy discussion that we have in our course that we are engaged in now. Okay, so we'll wait for that. A great question. But it will be filtered. It'll be filtered in a way that we are that we're a vessel for it, and that we will be able to retain and perceive the divine light. How will souls be created in the world to come if all souls are resurrected and there is no death? That's a good question. There's different parts to Mashiach. The first part is a world where there is no more greed, no more war, and the world will kind of be as the world it is today, but it will be able to perceive the presence and the truth of God in creation. So And then the second part, which is not as clear on what that means, at least, I don't know, complete clarity. But we're going to have to wait for that. Just because it is Torah transferable. What does it mean, Torah transferable? I mean, could you... Torah scroll is a Torah scroll. And the Torah transferable, I don't know, you mean like, can you send an email with Torah teachings? For sure. I'm not certain that's what you mean. Okay. All right, we're going to end over here. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. To be continued. Oh, Vilma?
Happy Monday, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Batya. Thank you, Davida. All those who helped put this together. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.